frigid Alaska, a father and daughter risk hypothermia as they are forced to spend the night in the wilderness.
We were pretty desperate. Basically, we just clung to one another.
In Skagway, a mountain biking trip takes a terrible turn.
He has chest trauma, punctured lung, or like blood that's pulled up, basically a bruise that's swelling.
And when disaster strikes for a woman following her dream to fish Alaskan waters, the Coast Guard must rush her to safety.
Especially if it's an appendix, this thing could burst and it could really cause us a lot of problems. And so we got to get her to further medical care.
The vast Alaskan wilderness, a place where beauty is cloaked by danger. Here, every day, the highly trained men and women of the U.S. Coast Guard risk their lives to save others. America's deadliest waters are protected by Coast Guard Alaska.
Rescue 6025, the sick air open. The guy in Skagway who's riding his bicycle, he had a pretty bad wreck. You know, he's got head injuries. They think he might have possible bleeding on the brain. He got separated right shoulder. So yeah, he's in pretty bad shape.
Can you please find out if they've got an IV started in the Sky?
If they had an IV in the patient, then do not.
The longer they wait, the harder it's going to be to get one started in the Sky. Can you just notify me over the radio? With the injuries he has, it's going to be harder to get an IV started the longer we wait. Thank you. I'm AST-3 David Munns, stationed at Air Station Sitka. Today we are responding to a medevac out of Skagway for a patient with head trauma. We had roughly an hour and a half of transit time to Skagway, and then we're going to transport him to Juneau for higher level of care.
You guys ready to go? Yeah, crew ready for takeoff.
Lieutenant Adam Whalen, Air Station Sitka. Anytime you hear of a traumatic injury, you always think that time is of the essence. So on this particular night when we take off, the fog's starting to roll into Sitka Sound, but we know the weather's good in Skagway and Juneau, so we're actually able to climb over the mountains and fly direct to Skagway, which saves quite a bit of time.
All right, so when we get up there and the weather's gotten worse, we can certainly talk about that and work on it.
We know the weather's always a factor that could affect our flight. You just get these pockets of fog that could definitely change the amount of time it takes to get somewhere.
That's that always. Just under 30 minutes. Could change here depending on what the headwinds. Roger.
Lieutenant Simon Green, Air Station Sitka. The thing that I'm always nervous about going into Skagway is it's enclosures of a very small fjord. It's at the north section of a relatively small fjord. There's a valley above it where winds tend to come cruising out of Canada, filters down through Skagway. If visibility is reduced, it's extremely narrow. It's no more than about half a mile. So flying into Skagway is usually challenging, even on the best days.
Sector Juneau 6025. We are approximately 2-5 mics from Skagway. The ambulance will be on scene.
While we're flying, we learned that the patient has several additional injuries.
So Dave, what did you call the issue with the heart and lungs, etc.? Pneumothorax. What does that mean?
It's that he has air on the outside of his lung that's like not allowing his lung to completely fill up.
You get that from like a hole in his chest? How does that happen?
Chest trauma, punctured lung, or like blood that's pulled up like from like like basically a bruise that's swelling.
Group ready for approach. Group ready for approach. Should see the ambulance here momentarily.
We meet up with the ambulance crew after landing safely on deck in Skagway. They gave me the rundown as far as our patient falling off his bike, head injury, shoulder injury, couple ribs broken and pneumothorax. So with a pneumothorax, you've got a puncture of the lung. It could be really bad. So with that in mind, it definitely kind of kept me on my toes. He's in their gurney, still has a possible neck injury, so we need to transport him to our backboard and litter. We had enough hands between our air crew and the ambulance crew to move him to our helicopter.
For takeoff checklist, go for ready for takeoff. Ready for takeoff. You gonna be all right at 500 feet, Dave?
As long as you stay under 1,000, we're good to go.
Roger. He's as bad as they said he was?
Sounds bad on paper, but he's really stable. So, depends on how you look at it.
With our patient having a head injury, I knew it was important to get a good set of vitals on him as soon as we got in the helicopter and to continue to monitor those vitals.
Don, can you hear me? Yes, I can. We're just gonna go ahead and slip this guy in your finger, okay?
Because he was conscious, we put a headset on him, and pretty much I just held a conversation with him the entire flight back to Juneau.
Are you okay in a laying down position, or do you need to be sat up or anything? No, I'm fine where I'm at.
You guys all picked a good day to, a good week to go on an Alaska cruise.
Weather was excellent.
From Skagway to Juneau, it's a short flight, 30 to 35 minutes. Juneau's forecast was scheduled to remain clear as well.
Report ready for approach. Hey Don, if you can hear me, we're about ready to land.
Sounds good. I thank you for your professionalism and service.
Yep. Parallel to the hangar with our nose back to the left. Park brake.
We take the responsibility of serving Southeast Alaska very seriously. We train day in and day out, and night in and night out, so that we can always respond to whatever's thrown our way. It is a really awesome feeling to work together, all in the common interest of saving a life. Have a good night, guys.
My name's Don Gray, and I live in Hammond, Indiana. My family and friends were in Skagway, Alaska, as part of a vacation. We chose to do an evening bike ride, returning into Skagway just before sunset. And at some point, the bike hit a patch of gravel, and I believe the back of the bike stuck. Next thing I knew, I was laying on the ground and feeling some serious pain. The diagnosis was a severely separated shoulder, 5 broken ribs, and a collapsed lung. I have extreme words of thanks, praise, gratitude for the air crew. I don't think people really appreciate until it happens to them, the amount of training that they put in and the professionalism involved. That night evacuation was critical. I know my condition was degrading and time was of the essence.
The female is 44 years old, suffering from exhaustion. They're not ambulatory.
We got word from our command center that there's 2 hikers stranded on the side of a mountain.
Who's going down?
What seemed to be a relatively flat surface turned out to be a pretty big drop.
I'm AST-3 David Munn, stationed at Air Station Sitka. Today we're going to take advantage of this nice weather and climb to the top of Verstovia. It's a 2,500-foot peak in the vicinity of Sitka. We'll have a pretty spectacular view, so it should be fun. I've been in the Coast Guard for 5 years now. You've quickly learned that your training's never over. It's day in and day out, you're learning new things. Good example, just last week we had a case where we pulled a guy who fell off his mountain bike. Middle of nowhere, got hurt. Just makes you realize how careful you have to be out here. We're finally getting our first little view of Sitka here. It's starting to get rewarding. The higher and higher we go, the better and better the view gets. I think one of my favorite parts about being up here in Alaska is being able to wake up and walk right out the back door and have all of this. It doesn't matter whether you're out here alone or with a buddy or two. You know, one of the biggest things is just making sure that you're watching where you're going. It's easy to have your attention taken away to look at the scenery, and next thing you know, you're following a game trail out into the abyss. It happens all the time. I mean, a majority of our cases here, you know, they got lost and now they're stuck on the side of a mountain for longer than they expected. Well, the terrain's getting steeper. Now it's a matter of guts and glory, putting one foot in front of the other and getting to the summit. We just summited Pristovia, also known as Arrowhead. It's an amazing feeling being up here, especially on a day like this. Now, hang out up here, enjoy it for a while, and figure out how to get back down.
We got word from our command center that there's 2 hikers stranded on the side of a mountain near Haines. The position we have is a lat long. It's right near Haines Airport, so we're familiar with that area. If anybody is spending the night out in southeast Alaska unprepared, then they're most likely going to be wet and cold, so we're going to be concerned with hypothermia.
I'm gonna climb up, see if we can get up above these puffy clouds over here, at least shoot between them.
The weather doesn't look too bad. It's looking scattered. As long as we can get up on top of it, we'll go straight, direct to the position that we're given to us.
2-5, request to know if the ground party has any type of communication via radio. Over.
We don't have a lot of information about the case at this time. All we've got past from sector is that there actually was a ground party there, part of the volunteer fire department, and there's 2 people exhausted and they can't make it down the rest of the way to the road.
Should be right in this area. According to the lat long, we guess.
Hikers in distress, hikers in distress. This is the Coast Guard helicopter on 1-6. Do you hear? This is Hiker Rescue. And Hiker Rescue from the 2-5. We are currently orbiting the last known position. Do you have visual on us, over? Coast Guard, Hiker Rescue, that's a negative.
Might be blocked around the outside of these trees. I'll come back over, hug the mountainside here, kind of over the river.
So when we're in the area, the helicopter is very big, it's very loud, and you'd think that from the ground you'd be able to pick out a helicopter, especially when it's such a big open area.
I think I do see hikers on the left.
Where do you see them at?
I got them in sight, 2 o'clock directly below us.
Once we arrive on scene, we saw that the ground party and the survivors were on the side of this mountain. And from a swimmer standpoint, what you're looking for is a nice flat platform to hoist them from.
Ground party from the helicopter. Request you have someone survey the site to find the flattest part around there, please. Over here. Although it's not flat completely, it's the flattest. It's where the person in blue is standing in the middle of the rocky area. That's a good copy. We have a visual on him. That should be a perfect platform for us. Over.
You comfortable going down?
Absolutely.
In order to hoist to that specific spot, we had to be pretty high up. So the hoist ended up being about 105 to 110 feet from where the survivors were to the aircraft.
Who's going down?
Things get lost in translation from 100 feet. It looks a lot flatter and a lot more manageable from the air. When I was going down, it started to change the farther down I got, and what seemed to be a relatively flat surface turned out to be a pretty big drop. And I actually lost footing and ended up sliding about 15 feet over behind the survivors.
It's Flipper, 6025, go ahead.
I think we're just going to do 2 basket recoveries, and I'm going to stand up and the position where we'd like to bring the basket down to. It's the most stable and flat platform we have.
Copy.
We briefed the survivors what's going to happen to them. They both understood that it was going to be a risky hoist, but it was their only option. Given the condition of the father, there is no possible way that he would have been able to make it down safely.
First, just set the basket. Easy for it, right? Hold. Ready to take the load. Taking the load. Fastest to the deck. Hold position. Fastest coming up.
You know, one of the challenges we had there was the wind. We're typically used to a wind coming directly at us, kind of horizontally. This one, because we were facing the side of a mountain, it was actually coming down the face of the mountain, which puts the airflow coming down through the rotor head. So it's almost like we're not maintaining a constant hover, but actually a constant climb. And because of that, we have to make sure that we're not in a situation that we can't get ourselves out of. We got word from our command center that there's 2 hikers stranded on the side of a mountain near Haines.
I think we're just going to do 2 basket recoveries.
They both understood that it was going to be a risky hoist, but it was their only option.
Fastest coming up. Fastest inside the cabin.
The male was brought in, the father, and he was brought in safely, and immediately we went to deliver the basket to pick up the female.
Person getting inside the back.
She was a little apprehensive to actually do the hoist, but seeing the first one go so well, it relieved a lot of her stress. And once she gave me the thumbs up, we sent her up to the helicopter.
Fastest coming inside the cabin.
So once I got back up into the helicopter, I knew that I didn't have to provide any medical care because the member of the fire department had provided care to the father and he was in stable condition.
Luckily, where they were was only 2 miles from the airfield. It took us maybe 3 or 4 minutes to get them on deck.
And they were just super happy to be back on deck. As we walked them out of the rotor arc, we were met by EMTs, and it's a good feeling being able to pass them off to a higher level of medical care and to know that they were going to get treatment and they get to see their family again.
So something we don't always get to see is that happy ending or happy reunion. A lot of times that takes place out of our eyesight, but being able to see that from the aircrew perspective, makes it rewarding.
I'm Kelly Williamson, and my dad is John Hamilton. We had chosen to hike Mount Rapinski. We had reached summit at noon. We were doing great until we saw a separate path, and it led to some water. We thought it might be neat to put our feet in the water after hiking for 6-8 hours, so we kept going in that direction, and about another 2 hours, it dead end.
When dark fell, we were so exhausted, neither one of us could barely walk. We found a semi-smooth spot amongst all the rocks, and we called her husband, who decided to call the rescued people. Unfortunately, they couldn't pinpoint us. We were pretty desperate. Basically, we just clung to one another until the next morning. And of course, when the rescuers actually came within voice contact, we were elated. They were right on the spot, and what they said and what they did was outstanding. I had to take 2 liters of intravenous injections on the mountain.
I just would like to say that we'll just be eternally grateful for what you were able to do for us. For everybody who was kind of waiting with bated breath of what was going to happen, we want to say thank you to Air Station Sitka.
All right there. I'm George Menzie, and I'm an H-60 pilot here in Kodiak. We're going to go up today and do a little salmon fishing. It's going to be on the Litnik, which is a Fognak Bay. Map of the Earth, baby. It's kind of a nice area because it's secluded. You need a boat to get over there. So this will be our storage cache area right here.
My name's Scott Woodcock, and I'm a H-60 helicopter pilot. I was stationed with George in Clearwater, Florida. He beat me here by a year, which is kind of good for me because he already knows the good spots to go fishing.
He's jumping. He keeps jumping on me. Yeah, buddy. Play him, play him. Yeah. That one's pretty nice and silvery, too. That looks like it's fresh from the ocean. Anytime you get weather like this in Kodiak, you want to take advantage of it, especially in the summertime, and get out there. It helps us unwind from work, enjoy the beautiful area we're in, and honestly, I could see myself retiring in Kodiak because I love it here.
Dude, that dude is a monster.
Hold him up. Oh, you can't with that thing. Yeah. Woo! That's a good day right there.
That was awesome, dude. I love this place.
I do too.
Got him in safe. Crossing right to left.
There was a vessel taking on water far offshore. Is definitely a serious type of issue.
Neil Talkin, Coast Guard Rescue helicopters.
Yeah, we have lost all power now. All engines are underwater.
My name is George Menzie. I'm H-60 aircraft commander. We got a call early in the morning around 5 a.m. that there was a vessel taking on water approximately 100 nautical miles south of Cordoba. And a vessel taking on water that far offshore is definitely a serious type of issue. You've got the dangers of the cold water down there and being that isolated from any kind of assistance on the shore. We didn't delay in our launch, got out as quickly as possible. It took us almost 45 minutes to get on scene.
Got him in safe. Crossing right to left.
There were two vessels on scene, the boat taking on water, and there was a Good Samaritan very close by.
You think it's the silver one?
Yes, the silver one's the one that looks like it has this to it. In the back port quarter, you could see that the boat was listing pretty hard, and there was probably 2 feet of water on the deck. Every now and then, a wave would kind of roll over the side of the boat, so kind of nerve-wracking at first. I didn't really know how much water he was taking on, where the water was coming from. We talked to the captain for a little while, started making a plan.
Fishing vessel Daniel Taka. This is Coast Guard Rescue helicopter 6003.
I'm gonna guess it's the silver boat. It's the only one that's listing hard to the port side. It looks like I see a pump on board too. Rescue aircraft, Kennedy Tucker.
Roger, Daniel Taka. Understand you need a pump, is that correct?
Yeah, we just lost all power now. All engines are underwater. Well, we've seen where it's coming in. It's a weld crack, about 2 feet long.
Yeah, roger that, Captain. That doesn't sound good.
Sounded like there was some seam or weld that had cracked and I guess got continually larger. Definitely had a lot of water on board. So we quickly set up to do a direct pump delivery with a trail line.
We need another pump.
Roger that. We can give you another pump. Do you need our rescue swimmer on deck to assist you?
Yes, please. We need assistance. Two guys I got on board are pretty green, and I could use that one guy if you got some help.
Roger that, Captain. Trevor.
Yes, sir.
We can deliver you via trail line and then deliver another pump.
Sounds good. I can try and get the one they're trying to get started.
There's absolutely a lot of concern when you're putting down a rescue swimmer to a boat that's taking on water and listing. I just told Trevor real quick before he went out the door, just keep your head on a swivel, make sure you pay attention to what's going on around you. Don't let anything on the boat either hit you, harm you. Don't let that thing roll over on you, and don't go below if you can, because that boat looks a little unstable. At that point, it definitely looked unstable from where we are.
And rescue checklist complete, ready for trail line delivery of the rescue swimmer.
Kind of more of a friend-to-friend thing than it was rules of engagement. It was just, hey buddy, don't forget what's going on down there. Keep your head in the game. I want you coming back up here.
Go check fleet, lowering swimmer. Swimmer's going out past the door. Roger, close cabin. Swimmer's going down. And swimmer is on deck.
And when you're ready, you can deploy the pump.
Roger, pump's going out cabin door.
Once that pump got on board, a rescue swimmer got the next pump running within a minute. So then they had 2 pumps on board running.
Rescue swimmer's working with them.
Good job, Nate. Good job.
Yeah, they got a lot of water on deck down there. They probably got 4 feet of water in the back where the bulkhead is.
Captain, are you seeing an improvement since the pumps were put online there? Are they keeping up with the water coming in?
I got over a foot of water on the back part of the deck. We'll have to monitor. I'll give you an update on that in a few minutes. I got to watch it a little bit and see. I can't really tell right now.
Roger, Captain.
Thank you for your assistance. I'll be standing by here.
We could visibly see the vessel coming out of the water. The gunnels were getting further and further out of the water. We could tell the water was actually getting pumped out fairly well.
Go ahead, rescue swimmer.
The Captain Sergeant is all 4 of them are dead, so they're DIW.
Yeah, roger that, understood.
Ask him if he has someone in mind that can tow him back, since he is DIW.
Roger, Daniel D. You probably haven't thought this far ahead yet, Captain, but do you have anybody available, if necessary, to take you in tow to go back into port?
That's a roger. I've already got that on my mind. The boat right behind us, he's our company boat. So I'd like to get him up ahead of me here and get a tow rope hooked up and take advantage while this weather is good and start idling towards Seward.
Okay, roger that, Captain.
Luckily, they had a sister vessel near them and could tow them if necessary, and also had some of the repair materials on that ship that could help repair that aluminum weld.
Swimmer's clear of the deck, clear to move back and left. Bring swimmer up to cabin doors. Bring swimmer side to cabin.
Good job. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
We had to leave the scene because of bingo fuel state, but C-130 from Kodiak had already been launched. What we did was we left the boat on scene with the C-130 just in case, you know, something else happens. Maybe that leak becomes larger and they sink.
Sector Anchorage 109er. I have a sit rep for you. The vessel has two boats up and running. They are winning the fight against the ocean. It looks like they're riding a little bit higher in the water. Their sister vessel is rigging for tow, and they're going to stricken vessel under tow. Going down to Seward.
I had an excellent crew. I had Nate in the back as our flight mech, and Trevor. He was cutting his teeth as the new rescue swimmer in a harsh environment. He proved himself really quick by getting down there, getting on the vessel, and getting that pump started up within a minute after it hit the deck. The whole crew did a great job coordinating. The C-130 helped a lot. It was a very successful mission because of all that.
Good morning, everybody. Mr. Plansich, Mr. Hardwick, Mr. Fultz, and Mr. Kitt, welcome to Air Station Kodiak. Your actions on the 25th of January, 2012, were nothing short of heroic. My name is Captain Melissa Rivera, and I am the commanding officer of Coast Guard Air Station Kodiak, Alaska. Today we're having a very special awards ceremony where we are presenting gold life-saving medals to 4 crew members from the fishing vessel Tuxedni.
Mayday, mayday, mayday. Heritage. We've lost all engines. Taking on massive water. We are adrift. We are 7 people on board.
What we're here today to honor is a crew tied up in a bay, weathering out a storm, not just a storm, probably one of the most intense storms that have hit, risking their own lives to get underway from the safety of that bay. And because of that, 5 individuals were safely pulled from the water. For extreme and heroic daring on the morning of 25 January 2012 during the rescue of 5 survivors from the fishing vessel Heritage, the crew of the fishing vessel Tuxedni encountered blowing snow, freezing spray with heavy ice accumulation and 50 to 60 knot sustained winds. Undaunted by the same extreme weather conditions that had caused the fishing vessel Heritage to accumulate ice and founder, the crew of fishing vessel Tuxedni pressed on into the darkness without regard to their own safety.
Awarding of the Gold Life-Saving Medal is very rare, and the award is given for near sacrifice of your own life in order to save others at sea.
Back Coast Guard helicopter, Tuxedni. We got 5 people in the life raft that made it aboard the Tuxedni.
Roger, if you have 5, then sounds like everyone's accounted for now.
My name is Wayne Kitt, and I'm a deckhand on the Tuxedni. We were tied up, we were waiting to take fish from the Heritage. They were 6-7 hours late by the time we got the Mayday call. By then the windows are icing, so you got to go out on deck to keep an eye out for anything you can see. The freezing spray is hitting you in the face and it feels like nails. I mean, it's freezing that fast. When people are in that situation, you don't really think about yourself.
May the actions of this crew bear witness to the goodness that resides in the human heart and speak of a spirit of concern for the well-being of one's fellows.
The Coast Guard, you know, they rock. We don't hold a candle to the Coast Guard. I'm lucky to feel one time what they feel like all the time.
HS1 Benton Allen. I work here at Coast Guard Air Station Sitka.
We have a 43-year-old female. Sounds like she has some severe abdominal pain.
The patient is, we heard, on a fishing vessel named Tuxedni, I believe. HS1 Benton Allen. I work here at Coast Guard Air Station Sitka.
We have a 43-year-old female. Sounds like she has some severe abdominal pain. So we're gonna go pick her up and do a quick evaluation and maybe get her back to Sitka.
The patient is, we heard, on a fishing vessel named Tuxedni, I believe. Juneau is the closest clinic. It sounds like it'd take them a day or so to get there with the patient, and they suspected it was appendicitis. It can be very dangerous, and that's kind of what we're worried about. If that bursts and infects the rest of the abdomen with bacteria, a small infection could then turn into a lot bigger infection in the abdomen.
She's kind of balled up in the fetal position. Any kind of straightening her body causes a ton of pain.
Okay, now you can call the flight surgeon if you already got a brief through sector.
I'm comfortable with that. We can call the flight surgeon if you want. Maybe do a quick call down here.
Yeah, let's do it. AST-3, Cameron Cullen, Air Station Sitka. We talked to the flight surgeon and we knew that she was in severe pain in the abdominal region and it has been going on for a little while and she needed to get off the boat as soon as possible.
She needs evaluation to the hospital and general surgical services. The big thing is for the rescue swimmer, she's not the kind of fish that you're going to be all strapped down completely supine, in a litter. She's going to need to be either cage bent or maybe some mask that might be more comfortable, and that would be clear in a position of comfort to get her back to Sitka.
Okay, roger that, sir.
Thank you.
So as we got the information on the case, we found out the vessel involved, the Tuxedni, it actually helped the Coast Guard out in a previous case over in Kodiak last year and actually had received an award for the case for the aid they'd given us some fellow mariners. So we knew going over there that this was a vessel with some competent mariners on it. They were going to be able to help us and we get things done when we got there and that they'd be ready to go.
We took off from Sitka and we found some clouds hovering over some of the taller mountains over the island. But we were able to find a gap between the clouds and a saddle. So we elected to take that route and in route time, approximately 30 minutes over to the vessel.
You got whip antennas too on the back on the pilot house? Yeah, I see those. They're below, they look like they're lower than the mast. All right, 5 miles out.
Well, when we hear that we have to pick up somebody off the boat, we actually tried Googling it and we got a decent idea of what the boat looked like as far as the masts and the rigging and whatnot. So we had a little bit of an idea going into it, which is always helpful.
Yeah, I think I might have them inside right now. What position, sir? 1 o'clock. Yeah, I see him. All right. Keep in mind that we do have obstacles on the left and right side.
Hoisting from a vessel always is going to involve some challenges. There's always going to be obstacles. These boats aren't built to be hoisted from. There's a big mast up forward and there's a couple of antennas back on the pilot house. You're always got to be careful, always got to look at all the hazards, but I think it's going to present a pretty good hoisting platform.
If I can keep my eyes on that mast, that'll make me feel a lot more comfortable. So if we came almost perpendicular to that grip, like coming up right across midship, that'd be perfect.
Lieutenant Commander Atkins contacted the fishing vessel Tuxedni to coordinate where we're going to hoist and try to get an update on the condition of the patient.
It's been like this for 3 days. That's what it sounds like. I'm
sounds like maybe today is just like got quite a bit worse.
Yeah.
Ready for approach.
Door's coming open. If you have a malfunction during the hoist, just try to get me over the water and shear me if you can. We good position?
Good here as far as I can tell.
Okay, we're going out the door, load check the swimmer. Load check complete. Swimmer's going down. Hold. Swimmer's about 5 feet off the deck. Swimmer's just off the deck. Swimmer is on the deck.
It was a really nice hoist, and once I got down there, I saw the patient sitting there. The first thing I do as an EMT is what's called a general impression, and that's just mainly based off of instinct. But I can tell that she was in a lot of pain just by the position that she was in. She was guarding her abdomen area. You could tell that the movement of the boat was hurting her even more, so at that point just knew that we needed to get her out of there.
Sir, if you just give me 2 minutes, I'll be ready.
We'll commence an approach and just give us a thumbs up when you're ready.
Up there, see you shortly.
We have two options here, either to put her in the basket or the rescue litter. And a lot of times we have medical patients, we like to put them in the litter, but based on her conditions, she did not want to lay out because it hurt her abdomen even more. So she liked to stay in that fetal position. So based off that, I knew that we were going to do a basket recovery.
Hold. All right, fast on deck and survivor is getting in. All right, prepare to take a load, taking a load. Fast is coming up. All right, best announcers outside cabin. Fast inside.
We pull her into the helicopter and try to get her situated, you know, over in the troop seat. And, you know, looking into her eyes and seeing that, you know, you can tell when someone's in a considerable amount of pain. And the scary thing to me is that, you know, it had been going on, I think today is day 4. And so, you know, the longer that you're having this sort of pain, the better the chance that, you know, especially if it's an appendix, if that's what's going on, that, you know, this thing could burst and it could really cause us a lot of problems. And so we got to get her to, you know, to further medical care. And we have a 43-year-old female with abdominal pain.
All right, best announcers outside cabin.
We pull her into the helicopter. You can tell when someone's in a considerable amount of pain. And the scary thing to me is that, you know, it had been going on, I think today is day 4. And so the longer that you're having this sort of pain, especially if it's an appendix, this thing could burst and it could really cause us a lot of problems. And so we got to get her to, you know, to further medical care. And
Transformer inside cabin.
Well, we got Cam and the patient are back on board the helicopter. So the weather looks good, and we'll be able to go back up over the mountains and basically do a direct flight. So keep it probably the total time under a half hour to get her to the hospital.
25 minutes to get back home.
Roger that, sir.
Seen Coast Guard Hilo. Thanks for your help. You know, you've worked with the Coast Guard in the past, helping out. Appreciate all you've done. Glad we could help you out today. Have a good day.
Roger, copy that. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Very, very much. Thank you. It's been going on since Friday, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and today's the 4th day.
Yeah, okay. Tough.
She's definitely tough.
Sector 6025, can you confirm ambulance on scene?
EMS is not currently on scene, but they are on their way.
HS1 Allen, the corpsman, was spot on right off the bat. He got the blood pressure, put her on oxygen, and was checking out her heart rate, so just did all the basic vitals, and, you know, we're looking at her breathing.
She's just saying her pain's getting a little worse. Was a 6, now she's saying an 8.
we're checking her vital signs every 5 minutes just to make sure that she is stable where she's at. We didn't really have enough time to worry about getting an IV, and that it would probably cause more distress to the patient, poking her with needles, and really just getting her to the hospital is ideal.
There's all type of stressors that are involved in this job, so when you come back from a case, it's just, you know, just the weight kind of lifted off your shoulders. You did everything that you can for the patient, and they're in better care now, and they're on their way to the hospital, so it's a good feeling.
Got a report here for you guys.
Okay, ready? Down.
This is Shayla.
Yes, thank you.
Can you stand?
I can stand.
All right,
I can't
let's get
stand
you
up
over.
straight.
She can stand because she's tough.
Okay.
Let's get you over on the bed here then.
Okay. I can't. Yeah, I can't stand up straight or sit straight.
I'm gonna help you with your legs. Ready? Up.
I don't care.
Thank you, guys.
Hey,
All
bye.
right, Shayla. See you, Shayla. You're feeling better.
Thank you.
You coming with that?
Being able to help this woman, and getting her to a place otherwise that it might have taken days, for her to get help, and it's unknown what could have happened otherwise. For me, there's so much pride just being able to be a part of this, and trying to help the people of Southeast Alaska. I really couldn't ask for more.
My name's Shayla O'Keefe, and I'm from Dana Point, California. It was my dream to fish in Alaska. I started to not feel too good in my intestinal area, and 3 hours later, I was in the fetal position on the floor. So when I heard the Coast Guard was coming, I could just surrender, and we went out on deck. When you hear the helicopter coming, it's all real. And sure enough, these legs come out of the helicopter, and he came right on down, and it's almost superhero-ish. And he came over, he took off his helmet, and he's smiling. And he's like 12 years old, and he knows what he's doing, and he was very confident. So I was transported from Sitka to Seattle. Originally it was thought that I had appendicitis. They quickly assessed that it wasn't appendicitis, that it was my gallbladder. I really want to say thank you to the Coast Guard and to Cam and everybody for their hard work, because if I wasn't picked up by the Coast Guard, if we would have had to travel in the vessel somewhere to get help, I probably would have went into toxic shock. When I'm out in the middle of the Bering Sea, it's not something that I actually feel safe doing up until now. Now I pretty much know that we're okay out here. That the Coast Guard's there. That they're gonna be there if you need them. And that's pretty darn nice to know.